Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you my March reading wrap up. March was a really good reading month for me and I managed reading a total of 16 books. Of these, 12 are physical books and 4 are audiobooks. I want to get through most of my physical TBR as soon as I can this year in 2025. I've been using a lot of different tricks and strategies to do that possible for myself. And in that way, I can say that reading 12 physical books in 1 month is definitely a really good step up for me because I don't think I have read as many physical books in any months before. I also read through different genres. I managed to finish like 2 or 3 series. I don't remember properly. I'll talk about them as I talk about the books. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. Starting with the physical books as usual, the first physical book which I finished reading in March is Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi, which is the second book inside the Legacy of Orisha trilogy. The first book inside this one is Children of Blood and Bone. I actually thought of rereading that book and then getting into the second book inside the series, but once I started rereading the first book, almost the entirety of the story came back to my mind. I just went forward and looked up for some summaries online, and after reading that, this was very much easier for me to follow through because by some chance I had not forgotten most of the first book, which I had read like 6 years back. So since this is a direct sequel, I cannot tell much about the series without spoiling it to you guys. But separately, for me inside this book, I like the way in which it was very fast paced, just like the other 2 books inside the series also. I also finished reading the final book inside the series. I'll be talking about it further on inside the video. But this is not as good as the first book personally, if you ask me, because the first book has so much more going on. The characters are built really well. There's a deviation in the ways in which the characters behave here, and there are some deviations inside the main plot also. As a whole, this was a really well built world and the characters are just good. The writing of the author is just extremely brilliant with beautiful world building. Even though it's not the perfect book inside the series, it was definitely a 4.5-star read for me. Next we have a literary fiction book, and it is also kind of a historical fiction. The book is The House of Doors by Twan Eng. This book was longlisted for the Booker Prize in 2023, and I'm sorry that the camera is not properly showing the cover of this book. I hope you can say it. So if it gets blurred on, please bear with me. So in this book, we follow our main character Leslie and her husband, and they are living in Penang, Malaysia right now. This is because her husband is a war veteran, and because of all the things that he faced during the war, he's not able to do as much stuff as he used to right now. So they are settled down in Penang, and during this time, one of their friends, who's a very popular world famous writer, comes and meets them in their home. There are so many secrets in that friend's life, and there are also secrets that these two people, that is the couple, are keeping inside their own lives. Leslie, who's the wife inside the couple, and this friend start to have a lot of conversations between themselves, because of which a lot of secrets about the other person are revealed to them. The writer friend also uses some of these stories that he hears from his friend's wife into the fictitious works that he's writing in now. It's overall a really nice book, and I ended up rating this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. The narration of this one is very non-linear, so if you're going to read this, please do read it slowly, otherwise you'll not be able to make head or toe out of this one. Next we have the final book inside the Legacy of Orisha trilogy, which is Children of Anguish and Anarchy. I've actually filmed a spoiler-free review video for the entire series, which will be published pretty soon inside the channel. Otherwise, it might have even been published before itself. Please do check it out. If it's already published, I'll be linking it down in the description. So this is the finale for this series, and this third book inside the series was published 5 years after the publication of the second book, which is a very long time. But for the amount of time it has taken, the book is quite short. Okay, the first book is the biggest inside this trilogy. The second one is a normal sized one, and this one is comparatively shorter. The ending of the trilogy was good. The ways in which the characters are brought in and their endings are given inside this book were digestible for me. In the 3 acts of this book, the second act and third act were really beautiful, if you ask me, because we travel to a different part of the world in which the story is taking place, and that part of the world is much more beautiful. It is so rich. It is layered with so much culture and history, and while reading that itself, I was able to see the world just bursting in my head because it was that beautifully built by the author. The plot is not the strongest point of the series at all, if you ask me. The characters are really relatable, and you can latch onto them and start liking them easily, but they are very human also, so they will do stupid stuff now and then, which will definitely irritate you. But as a whole, the writing of the author and the world building and the things that she's trying to represent through the series are really well done. So I rated this one also 4.5 out of 5 stars. Just keep in mind that it's a YA series, so if you're like 13 and above, you can definitely go forward and read it. It's quite brutal and violent at times, but as a whole, it is a really good series. Next, we have an Indian literary fiction / romance book, and and it is an adult book from one of my favorite authors. The book is It's All in the Planets by Preeti Shenoy. I didn't have much high expectations while I got into this book, but this delivered everything that the author does beautifully in her other books also. And since it's an adult book, it has a little bit of spice here and there, but as a whole, it does not come down in quality like any of her other books. Now here we follow our two main characters, Aniket and Nidhi. Aniket is working in a software company and Nidhi has a pottery studio. Both of these people are living in Bengaluru for their job and they are originally residents from Chennai. Once when they are coming back to Chennai for visiting their homes, they both end up being in neighboring seats inside the train, and from then on they form a connection. And Aniket is overweight right now and Nidhi is trying to help him reduce his weight by being his kind of fitness coach. The story starts from there and their relationship blooms very beautifully. I'm saying beautifully because both of these people are like 26 and 34 if I'm not wrong in age, and both of them are in relationships too. Nidhi is almost engaged to this guy and Aniket is in this relationship with this woman who's super popular for her looks and she's also a model. The thing that blossoms between them starts out as a beautiful friendship and then becomes more gradually. The slow burn of the romance here is really nice, and it is also adult, so it is very mature to read. There's no miscommunication, there's no stupid stuff going on, and as a whole I just love the writing of the author just like in any of her other books. So I rated this one also 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next we have two more books by Preeti Shenoy, but these are part of a duology, and the books are Life is What You Make It and Wake Up, Life is Calling. Now in these two books we follow our main character Ankita, and her story starts with us when she is in the last 2 years of her high school. She's a straight A student, she gets into all the colleges that she wants into and she picks up her own course as per her desires, and her parents are super strict. She's in a relationship with this guy which her parents get to know, and because of that a lot of ruckus is caused, and after she gets into college something really bad happens to a person that she knows, because of which a mental illness that is a part of her gets triggered and it starts acting up from then. Because of this the whole life of Ankita is turned over and she has to figure out what she's going to do with life from now on, because she's a person who has stuck with the rules, worked so hard, been a model student and everything else that the society expects of her. But even to her something so bad has happened and it's not something normal that every other person has to deal with. The author represents the mental illness that she shows here beautifully, and she also educates the reader about it without being very preachy about it. Both book 1 and book 2 are really nice, and if you are anywhere in high school or in college, this will be perfect for you to read. If I had read this during my college time, I think this would have been even more relatable for me because of the age range of the characters. But even now as adults, I'm sure that anyone who's an adult can also go forward and read this duology and appreciate it for what it is. I rated the first book, Life is What You Make It, 4.25 stars, and the second book, Wake Up, Life is Calling, 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book is the book club pick from March, and I think of the 3 books that I've read so far this year for the book club, this is the best, and I'm so glad that I read it, because if not for the book club, I don't know when I would have read this book. And the book is The Black Magic Women by Moushumi Kandali. It is originally written in Assamese and then translated into English by Parbina Rashid. This is a collection of 10 short stories that happens to main characters who are from the northeast part of our country, mostly from Assam, and what all kinds of shit they have to deal with in our country in the rest other parts, that is in the other states except from the northeastern ones. There's a lot of representation done here really beautifully. The cultural diversity as well as the richness of the culture and traditions from the northeastern states is beautifully shown by the author, even with the meager amount of pages that she uses. But this is definitely not a book that is suitable for beginners. I did not know it before I announced it for the book club. The writing is a bit difficult to understand, so if you're a beginner, I'd not suggest you to try reading this book. But if you're someone who wants to experiment with your reading and get to know more about stuff that are not as well explored in the mainstream media, this is definitely one book you must read. Just see the amount of tabs I have here. This book is hardly 200 pages long, and you won't believe how many tabs I have in here. The lines are just beautiful. The stories are so rich and very emotional. The writing of the author is just off the charts. I think the translator has also done a really beautiful job. Because of all these reasons, I just completely loved this book and I rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next we have an Indian adult mythology retelling, and this is a reread for me. It's also the first book inside the series. I wanted to read the second book, so I went forward and read the first book. It is Karna, the King of Anga by Kevin Missal, which is the first book inside the Karna trilogy if I'm not wrong. There is one more book yet to be released and I don't know when it will be released. So in this series we follow the story of the Mahabharata, but having Karna as the main character, and the amount of imagination that Kevin Missal has put into the world of Mahabharata in order to change the facets of the characters whom you have known as the protagonists and antagonists of the story, and showing a paradoxical view of the story itself is really beautiful. The mythology is properly represented here. At the same time, there's a lot more room to imagination that the author has made use of here. The language is simple, the book is big, so it will take a little bit of time for you to read, but if you're a beginner, you can definitely go forward and read it. It is a bit heavy with politics, so that might be a bit off-putting if you're a beginner, but otherwise this is definitely one book I think many more people need to read and just enjoy. I thought that this was a standalone when I read it for the first time, and only after getting to the last page of the book I knew that there was a second book which was coming out. And before I started reading the second book itself, I just went forward and read the last page like this one, and it said that the story is going to continue in book 3. I thought it was a duology, yet it's not. But as a whole, this was a really solid book, and except for the world building, everything about this book is really, really good. And I ended up rating this one 4.25 out of 5 stars, which is a bit higher than I rated it the first time I read it. Next, we have a non-fiction book, and if I'm not wrong, this is the only non-fiction which I finished reading in March, and it is also a book which I've been reading ever since the beginning of January. The book is It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolynn, which is a book that talks about generational trauma, how it affects us, how we are totally unaware of it, and how it does not have like a specific pattern in which it can affect you. The book is tiny, okay, I can see it is very, very short, but just see the amount of tabs I have here, because it is filled with knowledge which is something that I've not seen in any other book that talks about trauma before this one. I've not read that many books about trauma before. I'm trying to educate myself better because I want to deal with the things that are going on in my life and in the lives of my family members who are close to me. So I just went forward and started reading this book in the beginning of the year. It is a tough read, okay? It will take time for you to read it because it is heavy. Once you read some stuff, it will take some time to just accept what you read itself, because even though it's factual and true, our brain will not give us space to accept it as truth and just practice the things that the author is trying to say here. It is also quite a complex concept to wrap your head around, understand and start practicing. There are so many exercises that the author gives in here. The language is a bit difficult. If you're a beginner, you can't read it, but if you've read a few books before this one, you can definitely go forward and try it out. I can't wait to go back and take some notes out of this book because it is phenomenal, and I had some issues with it also, but as a whole it was something which provided a lot of value for me. So I ended up rating this one 4 out of 5 stars. So talking about the series, this is the third series which I finished reading in March. The first one was the Legacy of Orisha trilogy. Next we had the duology by Preeti Shenoy, and now we have a very super popular series which is the Ramchandra series by Amish. I read the last book alone because I reread the first 3 books in 2024. The last book is War of Lanka, which is book 4. There is yet another book to be published which will be wrapping up the series as a whole. Now this series technically happens before the beginning of the Shiva trilogy, and of the first 3 books, the second book is my most favorite, the book which talks about Sita. The first 3 books narrate the Ramayana until the abduction of Sita, but from different points of view. That is, Ram has the story of Ram, and the ending of that book shows Ram's point of view on the abduction of Sita. And book 2, Sita, is about Sita, the story from her point of view and how she ends up being abducted. And book 3 is about Ravan, how his life has been and why he comes and abducts Sita. And in book 4, the story is going to be linear again. You can read the first 3 books in any order, but only after reading all those 3 books you can come forward and read this one, because from here the story is going to be linear. It's going to move with a single storyline alone, and we are not going to see the same story from different points of view. So this one was very, very different from what I expected it to be. I thought this to be like a read which was like a mass movie, but this felt like more a Maniratnam movie to me, because there is so much talking that happens between the characters, which I definitely did not expect to happen at all inside this huge book. It surprised me, took me off my feet, and I was very delighted to see the way in which Amish has handled the story here. There are so many conversations that happen between the key characters inside the series, inside this book, and it is done in a super unconventional way by the author. We have not seen Ram, Sita, Ravan, Kumbhakarna, Lakshmana and all the other characters interact in the way in that they do here in any of the other adaptations ever. Okay, I can just promise and say that to you guys. It will be so much different from what you have seen from the various different adaptations of the Ramayana. It feels very logical, very practical, precise and to the point, super mature, and I think that's the main reason why many people don't like this book as much, because I think if the people inside the mythology had been as wise as they are said to be, this is how they would have approached the war and this is how it would have happened, and not like in the huge ways that we see it represented in movies and TV shows. I'm not saying that is wrong in any way, but I think this feels even more realistic to me. This feels like something that actually could have happened compared to the other versions of it. I'm eagerly waiting for the 5th book, which I think will also be the final book inside the series. Sita took a huge backseat inside this book. That was the one which pissed me off the most, because until book 3, the build-up for Sita's character is extremely great. Okay, I don't think anyone else has written Sita as good as Amish has in any of the other books that focus on her. So in this book, Sita alone was a disappointment for me, or the way in which Amish showed Sita was disappointing for me. Because of that reason alone, I went forward and rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. Again, continuing in the fashion of the series, this is the 4th series which I caught up with or finished reading because I've read all the books inside the series so far. And it is book 2 of the Karna trilogy by Kevin Missal, which is Karna, the son of Surya. The first book is much better than the second book, personally in my opinion. We see the same story continuing here, but 20 years after the end of the first book. Karna becomes the king of Anga in book 1, and what all he does and what all he has done with himself as well as his family to the kingdom of Anga in the 20 years time gap is shown here. It is relatively a shorter book, but it is not even 70% as good as the first book if you ask me. It's a nice addition to the series, and I think it is suffering because of the middle book syndrome also. And from my experience, I know that Kevin Missal is really good in ending his series very well. So I think book 3, which is Karna After Death, will be much better than this one. I ended up rating this one 3.25 out of 5 stars. The next one is a book translated from Tamil into English, and it is also the second book inside a trilogy, which is A Lonely Harvest by Perumal Murugan. My plan was to finish reading this entire trilogy in March itself. I have finished almost half of the third book inside the series also, but because of the year end, a lot of work came up suddenly out of nowhere and I was not able to finish reading the third book. So this is the sequel to One Part Women by Perumal Murugan, and based on the ending of the second book, or how it happens or not happens, there are 2 versions for the story to progress on, and of those 2 versions, this is one version and the third book is another version. You can read all these 3 books in any order, but reading books 2 or 3 before book 1 can spoil the ending of book 1 in a way for you. But as a whole, I don't think it will hinder the experience of just reading and understanding the series in any way. You can read all 3 books in any order. I went forward with the publication order, so I read book 1 first and I finished reading book 2 after book 1, and I'm currently reading the book 3, which I think I'll finish in the first few days of April. In this series, we follow our couple, Kali and Ponna, in a small village in Tamil Nadu in the pre-independence time of our country. They don't have a child, they've not had a child even 10 years after their marriage, and because of this, they are ridiculed by the society. What all happens in their lives because of it is the plot of it, and the author just does a great job of showing it all well to us. In this book especially, we see the camaraderie between women when some things happen in life and how they just come forward and in their way support other women. It was definitely a solid read and I rated it 4 out of 5 stars again. Now moving on to the audiobooks. The first audiobook which I finished listening to is Before We Forget Kindness by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which is the 5th book inside the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. So with this book, I managed finishing 5 series in March of 2025, which is an insane number if you ask me, because I don't think I have ever finished reading 5 series in 1 month. Even though I have not read all the books inside the series in the same month, this I think is the first time during which I have reached the conclusion or caught up with as many series in a single month itself. And just like in any of the other books inside the series, there are a collection of 4 to 5 stories that happen inside the Funicula coffee shop in Japan, where people can go have a cup of coffee and travel back in time or forward in time depending upon their desires, and there are a ridiculous amount of rules that they have to follow if they want to travel in time. If you want to read a cozy book which is kind of magical realism, kind of literary fiction, has a lot of depth to the stories and characters, has kind of a similar thread that runs on between all the books inside a series but need not be read in any particular order, this is definitely one series you should try reading. I don't have a physical copy of even one of the 5 books inside the series, but I want to get all of them and reread each and everything and annotate heavily, because that's the extent to which I love this series. So this was a great addition to it, and I rated this one also 4 out of 5 stars. Next we have a very tiny non-fiction book, which is The Hero by Lee Child. I have not read any book by Lee Child before this one, and it is also a very tiny book, okay? I think the audiobook is not even 2 hours long, and I finished it in one sitting. In this book, the author basically talks about the concept of a hero and why we need a hero in the world in any part of life that we are dealing with in order to inspire us and move the world forward. It talks about so many things, starting from mythology, religion, technology, the current world in which we are living in, the kinds of literature that are being written, the kind of movies that are being made, and all the kinds of media that expose people to certain things which they may not be aware of. The concept of hero can be understood really well if you finish reading this book, and it is also a very, very short read, as I said before. It felt a bit dry to me, so that was the only issue. Except for that, there was nothing bad about this book at all, and I ended up rating this one also 4 out of 5 stars. The next one is an adult contemporary romance, and it is The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker, in which we follow our main character Henry, who's overweight, and because of this reason, his partner just breaks up from him and goes away. Because of this reason, Henry goes forward and joins in a gym, and there he gets attracted to his trainer, who's Reed. They both bond together really, really well, and a really nice mutual friendship grows between them. But after a point, it is very evident that both of them like each other romantically, and from then on, a romance just blossoms between them. What all they get to know about each other and how they develop their relationship is the entire plot of this book, and it was done in a very mature, comical and fun way. The only one thing which I did not like about this book is that just because the main character is overweight, I thought that the author made him sound compulsively humorous for some reason. I don't know whether it's a good decision or not, but it irked me at multiple instances. But as a whole, I'll not say that that's a major issue of the book at all. It is really smoothly paced, it is super easy to read and follow, the characters are very adorable, and I definitely suggest anyone who wants to go forward and read it to give it a try. I ended up rating this one also 4 out of 5 stars. The last audiobook inside this list is a super popular Indian book, and it ended up being quite disappointing for me, and it is Bombay Balchao by Jane Borges or Borges, I'm not sure. So in this book we follow the lives of different people inside a small community of Christians in a part of Mumbai, which is Bombay from back then, and what all happens there because of the people who come from Goa and Mangalore and just settle there. It was very funny at instances, and the romantic stories that the author tried to write became more lusted and rather than romantic for me, so I did not like that aspect of the book at all. The writing was really nice, and it just felt very fresh and lush. Except for the writing and some kinds of humor inside the series, I did not take away anything much from it. I know that many people love this book so much. Maybe I did not like it because I'm not familiar with that part of our country. So yeah, this was quite disappointing for me, but if you want to try it, I definitely suggest you to go forward and try reading it because the writing is really nice. So I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. So yes guys, those are all the 16 books which I managed to finish reading in March, and I hope you got some good recommendations from this one. If you've read any of the books that I've talked about in this video, please do let me know down in the comments your opinions of them and we can discuss more about it. And also tell me your March wrap up in the comments because I always like to get recommendations from you guys. If you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.